Hey, everybody, and welcome to Adapt or Perish. In this episode, Ari's joining me for a discussion about Cry the Beloved Country, Alan Paton's poetic look at South Africa in the years before institutionalized apartheid. But before we jump in, let's talk about our next episodes. First, our next Adapt or Perish mini. We've made no secret of the fact that both Ian and myself are Maine kids, and there's a particular book that we Maine kids all had to read in middle school. Don Fendler's true story of survival in the wilderness, the creatively titled Lost on a Mountain in Maine. Until recently, I thought it would never break out of the Pine Tree State, but then in 2024, they made a dang movie out of it. We'll be discussing the book and the movie, and that episode will be out in 2 weeks on Tuesday, May 13th. Then, in our next regular episode, Ian and I will be looking at The Turn of the Screw, the 1898 Gothic horror novella by Henry James. It's been on the list for a long time, but it's always been a little intimidating, not just because it's about a governess looking after creepy kids in a haunted house, but also because it's been adapted a lot. We'll be discussing the novella and about a dozen big and small screen adaptations released from 1959 to 2020. That'll be out in a month on Tuesday, May 27th. Before we get started, a quick reminder that Adapt or Perish is no longer posting on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. We've been using meta platforms to engage with listeners for years, but as I've said previously, we just really don't want to be part of that world anymore. To find out about upcoming episodes and general show announcements, head to our Patreon page. You can join for free and get access to all the same information you'd be getting on social media and probably more. For more information, check it out at patreon.com/adaptcast or head over to our website, adaptorperishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapt or Perish, episode 164, Cry the Beloved Country. Hello and welcome to Adapt or Perish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
I am an unnamed guest co-host.
That is so dramatic. It's the most dramatic way you could introduce yourself.
I am Secret Sauce.
What? That is, first of all, rude. That is very disrespectful to my other co-host, Ian, who is not here to defend himself.
Hi, I'm Ari.
Everybody, Ari's back.
Hello.
Clearly, it's been a long time since you've done this.
Hello.
Everybody, Ari's back. But I think
briefly.
Briefly. No,
a guest appearance.
Yeah. No. That's as a guest. No one get too excited.
Yeah.
And as I said,
Especially not Ian.
as I said in the intro to the previous episode, I tricked you. I manipulated you. I'm the puppet master. I tricked you into coming back.
Explain.
Well, first of all, you did it wrong. This whole intro thing, you just messed it all up.
Great, thank you.
So,
way to neg me in the first 2 minutes of the episode.
I'm not negging. I'm acknowledging the reality.
Okay.
So, for example, let's try this again.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to Adapt or Perish. I'm Jeremy Latour.
I'm Ari, and this is Cry the Beloved Country.
Did I do
that right?
Yes. Now everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yay.
Remember that we did that after years of work.
Yeah. Years of workshopping.
To figure out how to introduce every episode. But I understand that it has been a while since you've been here.
Yeah.
All the way since Christmas.
Yeah.
But I'm super happy to have you back. But anyway, yes, I'm as I was saying, I'm the puppet master.
Yeah.
Because I wanted you to come back. And I thought, what better way to do it than to tell you that we were going to talk about one of your favorite books and movies in the world.
Yes.
And there was no way that you would trust us to do it.
Correct. Here I am.
So I am the puppet master. But we're here to talk about Cry the Beloved Country.
Yes.
This is, as you said, one of your favorite books.
Yes.
And one of your favorite movies.
Yes.
I am very happy to have you here to talk to me about this.
Thank you.
Where do you want to get started with this one?
Well, I'd like to talk about the book momentarily. In fact, we have a physical copy of this book. Would you like me to read the back?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I actually wrote down a couple of backs of the book for this one because I was not super happy with any of them. I think you should read the actual back of the physical book that you are holding.
All right. This is Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton. This is the Oprah's Book Club edition. An immediate world... Oh, I'm sorry. At the very top, it says in very large letters, the most famous and important novel in South Africa's history. And below that, it says, an immediate worldwide bestseller when it was published in 1948, Alan Paton's impassioned novel about a black man's country under white man's law is a work of searing beauty. Cry the Beloved Country is the deeply moving story of the Zulu pastor Stephen Kumalo and his son Absalom, set against the background of a land and a people riven by racial injustice. Remarkable for its lyricism, unforgettable for character and incident, Cry the Beloved Country is a classic work of love and hope, courage and endurance, born of the dignity of man. Alan Paton, as everyone knows, was one of South Africa's greatest writers. It says so on the back.
Yep.
And his other works include Too Late the Phalarope, Ah, But Your Land is Beautiful, and a collection of short stories, Tales from a Troubled Land. He died in South Africa in 1992.
Mm-hmm. So I don't like that back of the book.
Okay.
For our purposes.
Yes.
Here.
Because it doesn't say anything about the plot.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it's about some people in a time of hardships.
And it is beautiful.
I think like some literary review did a synopsis of it that I liked a little bit more. Could I read the what should have been the back of the book?
Please.
In search of missing family members, Zulu priest Stephen Kumalo leaves his South African village to traverse the deep and perplexing city of Johannesburg in the 1940s. With his sister turned sex worker, his brother turned labor protester, and his son Absalom arrested for the murder of a white man, Kumalo must grapple with how to bring his family back from the brink of destruction as the racial tension throughout Johannesburg hampers his attempts to protect his family.
That is certainly a summary. Slightly less lyrical, I guess, than the one on the back of my copy.
So much less lyrical.
Yes.
And we're in kind of a weird spot, I think, because usually when we go through and talk about the book, we talk about the plot.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think the plot's important, but the plot seems to be secondary to the lyricism of the book.
Yes. And I mean, I think one of the geniuses of the book is that they work together so well.
Yes.
The book is very lyrical. Some of the chapters, are the plot, and some are just kind of like a series of images or even like dialogues between unnamed characters, unnamed voices, white people talking about South Africa, black people talking about South Africa. It defies description a little bit. Another thing that he did stylistically, which is just interesting on the page, is he does not use quotation marks at all. He just uses dashes. So the speech, it just feels like sometimes it just kind of feels like you're in this like whirling mass of voices, which is something that you would think would translate really well to screen, but which none of the versions that we watched, I thought, really decided to go that route.
Yeah.
Now, you usually ask me about my history with the book, and I feel like what I have to say might be a little longer. So I'm going to ask you, what is your history with this book?
So my history with this book is very limited. I didn't know that much about it until a number of years ago that we watched the movie together, the 95 version that we're going to talk about at the end of the episode.
Yes.
And I'd never read the book until we actually did it for this. And so now I have read the book very recently.
Yeah.
And
for this, in fact.
For this. And it is great.
Yeah.
It's great. That's my experience with it. My experience was you told me to read this book and I read it and it's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, I would say for myself that I genuinely don't remember when I first read this book, how it got handed to me, why I read it. I don't remember. Certainly, I would say late middle school, early high school. Probably was when I first read this book. It wasn't first. I know some people read it for school. I didn't read it for school.
Yeah.
There are many, many, many years of my life, even up till today, that if you said, what is your favorite book? I would say Cry the Beloved Country. So one of the characters, I was thinking about how I wanted to talk about this. One of the characters in Cry the Beloved Country is a man named Arthur Jarvis, and the interesting thing about this character is we never meet him because he is dead. He is the murdered man, and one of the ironies of his murder by kind of local, random, meaningless crime, which everybody in the city of Johannesburg is afraid of. Although, excuse me. Well, I was going to say all the white people, but the black people are afraid of it too. Yeah. But certainly the white people are afraid of the black people in this time and place, because of reasons of they're fearful for their personal safety, because of the system that they themselves developed and perpetuated. Let's just put that right out there.
Can I be the first to say apartheid?
Apartheid.
I wanted to open that can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Open that can.
Yeah.
But anyway, as is commented on many times over the course of the novel, the great irony is that Arthur Jarvis was one of the great white advocates for black people and one of the great criticizers or dissenters against apartheid in this time. A fictional character, of course.
Yep.
possibly a bit of a Mary Sue for Alan Paton, I believe.
Yes. A bit.
Alan Paton has a couple different Mary Sues, actually, I think, in this book.
We'll get into that.
So anyway, at one point, this young father of a family, husband, father, cut off tragically young. His father, whose name is James Jarvis, is reading something that his son wrote that had been like unpublished. And one of the things that he writes that's very moving is how his parents were very good parents and they were very proud of being Christians and raising him with good moral values and to be a good person. And he says in this essay, he says, my parents taught me this, taught me that, how to be a good person, but my parents didn't teach me anything about South Africa. They never taught me about the country where I live. Mm-hmm. And I feel a bit of a kinship with Arthur reading this book when I was, as a young person, because I feel like you could say, my parents didn't teach me. I've thought about this, but I haven't really said it out loud.
Sure.
If there is anything in me that feels strongly about human rights and justice and social justice and a general sense of fairness and being kind to other people and equity and all of those things that are important to me as an adult, that wasn't taught to me by my parents. That was at least started by reading the book Cry the Beloved Country.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, now that I'm entering middle age,
yep.
I feel like I read texts with a bit more of a critical eye than I probably did as a sheltered 12-year-old in the suburbs.
Sure.
Which, by the way, lived in an area that, I lived in suburban Detroit, which is certainly not under actual legal apartheid in the 90s, was a very segregated, very black city and very white suburbs.
Yeah.
Very, very segregated place to live.
Mm-hmm. It's a microcosm of my upbringing, which was just that on a much grander scale because I grew up in Maine.
Yes. Very white state.
Yeah.
Very white city and state. So anyway, that being said, I think reading it through this time, I had a little bit more critique for Alan Paton and the way that he depicts white people as being very, very good a lot of the time. And there are a lot of white saviors in this book among the named characters. There's a lot of sense of like white people created an unfair system, and we hear a lot of voices of people who are racist and do not think of black people as equal mm-hmm. to them as white people, and frankly racist against like Afrikaans people, mm-hmm. as the English. There's a whole sort of interesting not microcosm, macrocosm,
right?
Because it's not just white and black; it's English, Afrikaans, and black people who come from, the white people see the black people, I think, as just sort of a one unit. But of course, in South Africa, there's many, 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 many different tribes and languages, and all that type of thing. And Alan Paton, for those who don't know, was quite the campaigner for equal rights in South Africa.
Yeah.
And he also, I believe, I could be wrong about this, I didn't do any research, but I believe ran a boys' reform school for some time. And there is a character who is the head of the boys' reform school where Khumalo's son at one point went, who's a very good guy, and even like breaks the custom of like crossing from the white side to the black side of the courtroom. I'm getting ahead of myself, but
yeah.
So all this to say, there's so much going on in this book. There's the plot, which is a very good plot, a very interesting plot. There's the character studies of each individual involved in the plot, which is very interesting. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have a lot to say about women. I will say the female character is a little underwritten.
That's not the cause that Paton was fighting for in writing the book.
But worth pointing out. Pointing out if we're doing light critique, there's the style of the book, which is artistic, lyrical, unique. It's like nothing else you've read.
Interestingly enough, it is like something else I've read,
which would be
the Bible.
Yeah, like but yeah, heightened.
Well, really heightened, but also it has that constant thing. We saw this when we read Exodus for the show. But like there's that constant thing where throughout the chapters, it's not written in a way like if it had been edited as like modern fiction.
Yeah.
An editor would say, you're repeating yourself a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff you're doing in multiple chapters that you've already stated, and you're doing it where it like sometimes it's from one character's perspective and sometimes it's from the narrator's perspective, and you're kind of jumping back and forth and it's not very consistent. But that's what the Bible is like.
Rhythmical.
Yeah.
Rhythmical. And rhythmic. And it kind of pulls you in. Like it's not a rough read because it just kind of pulls you in and takes you along with it.
Yeah.
You know, I have attention span problems and I had no problem like sitting down and just kind of reading this book in 2 or 3 sittings.
Yeah.
And then we have the social commentary.
Yeah.
And it is this amazing blend of all of those things. It is such a good book. He does all of those things so effortlessly. And it doesn't really, you know, he wrote a couple of other novels, like not a lot. And I don't think anyone ever reads Too Late, The Fallow Rope. It doesn't really surprise me that he had sort of one novel in him because he sort of just put everything in this book. And it is such a good book. It's such a good book that you can ignore, you know, of those like 4 or 5 things I just mentioned, you can ignore all but 2 of them and still have a pretty good movie. Like you could make a movie that's kind of just the plot and it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. I've been talking for quite a long time. I really love this book, as perhaps you can tell. Would you like to respond to any of the things that I have mentioned?
I'm just happy you're back.
Thank you.
This is nice. It's even as a guest, it's always nice to have you back.
Thank you.
No, I mean, the biggest thing that jumped out to me was that you had kind of pointed out the idea of there being all of these like white savior characters throughout it. You were telling me that before I started reading it. And then when I started reading it, if I was going to try to state my biggest problem with the book, it is a story about a community of people written by someone who is not part of that community. And everyone treats it like it is the work about that community.
Yes.
And that's an issue.
Yes.
So I'm worried that what I'm going to say is going to sound like I'm saying that's okay because, which is not what I'm saying. But I do think the thing that makes me okay with it in this case is that I think it's very clear that Alan Paton knows who his audience is. Mm-hmm. His audience is white Europeans.
Yes.
He wants people who have the power to make the changes on behalf of the people who have been marginalized.
Yeah.
Because the people who have been marginalized don't necessarily have the power to change what's going on.
Sure.
The people in power have the power to change what's going on.
Sure.
So the book is being written for those people.
Yes.
So whenever I see these characters, I feel like he's taking great pains, these white characters that are like good white people, quote unquote.
Yeah.
He's taking great pains to show that even though they are quote unquote good in the moment that he shows them in, they're not fixing the problem.
Yes, agreed. And I would also say 2 things. One, I think you're totally right. It is a question of who is the audience. Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, and she was writing it for a very specific audience because she wanted to get white people angry about slavery. Yeah, and she succeeded in that at that time. And then I guess the other thing I would say is like just to respond to what you said. Yes, and not only hey, look at these white people doing good things. I mean, I think one of the things he's saying, and he does kind of say it in the book, like they could do it if they wanted. Yeah. He's saying like, these people are doing it. You're not doing it. Mm-hmm. Why? You could. Why? There's a boycott of the buses and people are walking, you know, much like the one here in this country. And the people are walking, you know, 10 miles to work and 10 miles home. Because they won't take the buses to protest the fare being increased. Mm-hmm. Kumalo and his good, perfect savior friend, Miss Amangu, who's a wonderful, confusing and strange character, another black priest, are walking. They have to walk to this other part of town, and it's very far away. And this white man stops and says, "Hey, are you going to Alexandria? I'm going. You can jump in. It's fine. I know you don't have buses." And he takes them the whole way, drops them off, and then they watch him, and he just turns around and goes back the other way. They're both like, wait, what? Yeah. and they're both, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe I can't believe this. And then there's another part where they see a white man getting pulled over for having passengers, and the policeman is telling him, like, this is you're not a taxi. You can't take passengers. I don't care that you're not charging them anything. And the white man says, take me to court. Do it. Take me to court.
Yeah.
And Mr. Mongoose, like, he talks about, like, it is amazing that these few people are not only going out of their way, you know, and inconveniencing themselves for our sake, but they're saying, take me to court. Like, they're putting themselves in peril. There's one kind of cynical reading of that, which I don't think would be, like, unreasonable, which is like, wow, Alan Paton's just saying how amazing white people are.
Yeah.
But I think there's another reading which you kind of said, which is like, well, they're doing it, why can't you?
Yeah.
This is a thing you could do.
Yeah, this book feels angry to me.
Yeah, it is angry.
Which is weird because it's so poetic.
Yes.
And the tone is very chill.
Yeah.
It's a very relaxed read.
Yeah.
Even though terrible things are happening in it.
Yeah.
And it's angry.
Yeah.
It's a really angry book. And Alan Paton is not angry at the black characters he's creating. He's angry at the white characters he's creating.
Well, I think you know, if you kind of look at it as this, like, as this pyramid of great to small, on the very smallest scale, you're talking about two individual human beings who at the end of the book are dead.
Yeah.
One is the white man who was shot by Absalom Kumalo. The other is Absalom Kumalo, who has been executed for shooting this white man. Paton is kind of taking us on a journey to say, if we had done things differently 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 80 years ago, if you're sad about these two men being dead, just know that could have been prevented. They are cogs in a system that we created. You need to not just be sad about that. You need to be sad about everything else that I've been talking to you about.
Can I just take a quick sidebar?
Yes.
Because you're making me realize there's a whole aspect of the book that I don't think I appreciated while I was reading it, but now in retrospect, I really do. Is something that I've complained about a lot in other episodes, is the idea in a book or a movie where the author is writing about another work within their story. Like, someone writes a journalist. They're like, here's a story. It's about a journalist. And, they wrote this story and it's Pulitzer Prize winning and it's world changing. But they never show you the story because they don't have the capacity to write something that you would believe would be a Pulitzer Prize winning story.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. That's something that drives me crazy.
Yes.
Like, don't introduce it if you can't actually back it up.
Yeah.
And it didn't even occur to me that, like, Alan Paton wrote this very poetic book that contains a piece of political writing.
A couple of different pieces.
Yeah, a couple of pieces of political writing that are so plausible and so well written in a style that's completely different from the book Cry the Beloved Country, because of course it is, because Arthur Jarvis wasn't writing Cry the Beloved Country. He was writing,
political nonfiction.
Exactly.
Op-eds.
And they are completely plausible and profound and good political op-eds.
Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I feel like I always used to kind of skip that part when I was little, reading, much like in the book. Another favorite of mine, I read things that were not appropriate for my age because my reading level was higher. I read 1984 when I was in about 6th grade.
Sure.
And there's this like mystical book, like, that one of the revolutionaries wrote, and like they don't know if it's real or not, and finally, like, the main character gets his hands on it, and then Orwell he wrote the book. Like, he put the book in the book, and it's a completely different style, and I would always skip it, but, like, it's the most important thing.
Yeah. Like, Orwell's like, I wrote this whole book just so you would read this thing.
Yes.
I feel like Paton felt that he could have gotten his message across just by writing those op-ed pieces personally.
Yeah.
He would have just written those op-ed pieces.
Yeah.
But no, he wrote Cry the Beloved Country around them.
Yes. So, listen, I feel like we're slightly ahead of ourselves because I do want to just give a brief nod to the plot.
Let's do that. So one of the things that struck me about the book, and it goes back to the thing you were talking about before about how it, like, captured your attention, because I was totally into it the entire time, even though the plot doesn't necessarily progress the way you would expect it to in a piece of kind of standard fiction.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole thing is split into 3 sections. Yeah. 3 books.
Yeah.
And maybe we could talk about those one at a time.
Sure.
In book 1, it's the story of Reverend Stephen Kumalo, who lives in a town called Indochaney.
Yep.
He gets a letter And the letter's from Misimangu,
Yeah.
this other priest in
priest.
Johannesburg, and it's regarding his sister,
Yes.
who has gone to Johannesburg.
Yes.
And the thing you find out at the beginning is that one of the things that people in the towns outside of Johannesburg are constantly feeling threatened by are their family members going to Johannesburg and never coming back.
Yeah.
And he himself has a brother who went to Johannesburg and never came back, a sister who went to Johannesburg and never came back, and his son who went to look for the sister.
Yep.
And never came back and
Yep.
doesn't write. And so he has to make the journey himself. So I feel bad because we're just now getting into the plot, but I do just want to ask you.
Yeah.
Because I know generally how important Stephen Kumalo is as a character to you.
Yes.
But like, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If you were going to make your top 5 fictional characters of all time, where would Stephen Kumalo rank in relation to Jean-Luc Picard and Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah. Jean-Luc Picard, Sherlock Holmes, Thomas More.
Right, obviously. Yep.
No, you know I like an older man that believes in something.
Yeah.
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 Like just a really good person that believes in something.
Mm-hmm. But good it's interesting that you say he's a good person.
Yeah.
Because he tries to be a good person.
He's a conflicted person.
He's very conflicted, and he's a real person.
His actions are good.
Except when he's angry.
Except when he's angry. He does have a bit of a temper. I don't know. He's a confusing person. No character in this book is simple.
Yeah.
They're all confusing, and I think that's what makes them very human, because humans just do things, and then you're reading it and you're like, well, why did that person do that? That's a weird thing for them to do. I don't know if that even works. And then you're like, yeah, but they're a person.
Yeah.
Like, people do real weird stuff. People get angry. People say things they don't mean. People say dumb things. People do dumb things.
But he's a true believer.
Yeah.
He is a true believer in Christianity.
Yes, in God.
In God. And when he acts against what he thinks he should be doing, he feels bad about it because he acted against it.
He has a conscience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes to Johannesburg, and when he goes there, he immediately is not robbed, swindled.
Yeah, conned.
Yeah. He's conned by a young man who it's not important getting into like how the guy takes his money.
Almost immediately a small amount of money is taken from him that I think kind of colors the way that he sees kind of people in general forever. It's kind of like I'm making lots of weird comparisons. You know, at the end of Fargo, when Marge is like suddenly realizes there's bad people in the world.
Yes.
But she's been a cop for 20 years.
Right.
She's only just figuring this out now. I think it's kind of similar. It's like, you've been a priest for how long, and you're just now figuring out like there's bad people in this world, but that happens at the beginning.
Right.
So then he's thrown into confusion, and he doesn't really know what to believe. He goes through a dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
Like a really, and I think in the book way more so, shows that way more than any of the film versions that we watched. Mm-hmm. He goes through a process that I wouldn't call like close to losing his faith, but definitely feeling bereft, and definitely has to be spoken to sharply by some of the other priests about snapping out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is probably an oversimplification, but I feel like the sense I got from it was not that he was ever necessarily going to lose his faith in God, but that he was rapidly losing his faith in people.
Yes. Yeah. And there are two different priests that are his friends, both of whom at one point or another say to him, I have to talk to you as a priest. Like, you need to shore yourself up here. Like, you are maybe being tested, like, for the first time. Like, maybe you thought you had been tested before. Like, obviously your life has been hard. You grew up in this very poor village, and like, you see suffering around you, but like, maybe you haven't suffered before. Maybe this is the first time you're learning about suffering. And it's a very Christian message. I mean, Alan Paton was a strong Christian.
Yeah.
And, you know, sort of the social justice variety, I think. Listen, I'm just for context, I'm steeped in Christianity this week, more so than usual, because we're as of, just for a peek behind the curtain, as of this recording, this is April 24th, so we're basically halfway in between the Pope's death and his funeral, and it's the only thing I've been watching on TV. It's the only coverage I'm interested in, and so the idea of like sort of suffering and salvation has been high in my mind as a Jew. Mm-hmm. I think Alan Paton is making a very direct parallel to like Christ's suffering.
Oh, absolutely.
And like suffering for, and I mean, maybe that's a hot take. I feel like people have noticed that. I feel like when I notice a Christian parallel, it has to be pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway,
as opposed to just like a general kind of that's probably Christian in some way.
Yeah, no, like this man is kind of a Christ-like figure that is learning something about suffering.
Right.
And sort of offering up your suffering unto the Lord. Again, I don't know. We don't do that in in our faith. That's not a concept we are too familiar with. But that is what is happening here.
Yeah. I just feel like the big thing about Kamala that I get from him through the book, like if I was going to reduce his character down to one word, it's just shook.
Yeah.
Kamala's shook.
He's shooketh, yeah.
The whole time.
Yeah. He's
about
scandalized.
Everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So they
like this is not a confident man who knows what he needs to do.
Yeah. So he, immediately he's like, hey, Miss Mako is such an interesting character. He's fascinating. Like you never get inside him. You only see him from Kumalo's perspective. So you never know what he's thinking. Nothing is from his perspective. He's this priest. He operates from this sort of place of, I have something I need to pray for night and day. And Kamalo asks him, like, what is it? And he says, I have one great fear in my heart. It's that one day when they are turned to loving, they will find that we are turned to hating. And he fears this so much that at the end of the book, this is actually not that important to the plot, but like at the end of the book, he goes off to like some kind of contemplative order, like a monastery to pray without ceasing on this topic. But anyway, he's a priest in this community, and people are not doing well. It's very violent, poor. Police are always there. People are sick. They built this. There's this wonderful chapter where they talk about how this shanty town sprang up overnight and was built because there's not enough housing. The city is incredibly overcrowded, incredibly densely populated. Sex work, illegal liquor, drugs, stealing, rape, violence, murder. And he says, yeah, your sister's very sick. It's not the kind of sickness that maybe you think. She is a sex worker.
The way he says it?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth going into.
No. I think we got to speed run the plot here.
Okay. You know what? We do need to get beyond that.
Yeah.
So Missy Mango, the younger priest.
Yes.
He helps him find Gertrude, his sister, who is a sex worker, and she has a son.
Yes.
And he ends up taking her. He says, I'm taking you back to Indochine.
Yeah.
And she says she will come with him. There is a whole subplot that we don't really need to get into that follows the house where Gertrude is living.
Yeah, like it's wonderful, but it's not important to just how wonderful like the woman is that
Mrs. Ditebe.
Mrs. You pronounce it with a D. It's Ditebe.
Ditebe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Which is again also not super important for our purposes, but that she's kind of a mother figure and she's wonderful and takes care of the priests, and they board with her for a good long time. Yeah.
So we keep cutting back there, and then when he finds Absalom's girlfriend, who is pregnant. They go on this sort of goose chase all around your head. They talk to this person. Oh, they were here 2 years ago, but this is where they went. Oh, they were here a year ago, but here is where they went. They all over. They finally find that he had been at this reformatory school, but he had been discharged from there. He graduated essentially, and he supposedly is living with this girl that was pregnant by him in this like slum. Yeah. So they find her and then she also gets taken into this woman's house.
Yes.
So we're constantly throughout the book cutting back to this woman's house to see how they're doing. And it is not the most important thing for us to be talking about. To your point, the female character is a little underwritten.
Yes.
But there is an entire subplot that has gotten cut out of every version.
Yes, and she's a very good influence on Gertrude and the woman who does not have the girl who does not have a name.
That's true. She's a very strong influence.
Yes.
I don't know if she's a good influence.
She's a strong influence for good. She tries to teach them to do good.
Right.
And I guess here's the deal. This is not in any of the versions that we watched. But so just to wrap up Gertrude's story, I guess, Gertrude does not come back with them to Indochine because she runs off in the night and no one knows where she's gone, and we don't know what happens to her.
Yeah.
And I think in every version that we watched, it sort of implied that she went back to her old life. But in the book, she talks about maybe wanting to become a nun. I think it's ambiguous whether she did that or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And obviously an Anglican nun, because they hear a talk by like a sister.
Right.
And she thinks about it. But I don't know if it's like, oh, it was a passing fancy and she got scared and ran back to her old life, or maybe she went off to become a nun. Like, we actually don't know.
I mean, here's the thing. This is going to speak to the female character being a little underwritten.
Yeah.
I don't think Paton's very interested in letting us know what it is.
No,
I think it happens more so we can see what impact it has on Kamalo.
Yes. So Oh, and they find his brother.
They find Kamala's brother.
Who's well known.
Yeah.
He wasn't missing. He's right down the street.
Yeah. But he hasn't written.
No.
Yeah. But he's like he's a woodworker?
He's a carpenter.
Yeah.
But he's also a reformer.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't see that for a while. We don't really see his
side hustle.
Yeah, his side hustle for quite a while. We meet him in the context of owning a shop.
Yeah.
But he's not very helpful.
Yeah. The only information he can provide is that his son, who presumably is same or similar age as Absalom, they were always together, and they're probably together now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the end of book 1.
Mm-hmm.
Book 2, I think we start with Jarvis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the hills above the village of Indochaney is where the white people live. And one of them is I wouldn't say he's wealthy or rich. He's certainly well-to-do.
He's a landowner.
Yeah.
A farmer and a landowner.
Yeah. James Jarvis is his name. He's an older man. He has a wife. They have one son. He lives in Johannesburg with his wife and children, and his name is Arthur Jarvis. And what James Jarvis learns, and we'll just say Jarvis from now on. If we say Jarvis, we mean Father Jarvis, because he's the only alive character. He learns that his son... Oh, I think at the end of book 1, we learn that there has been this murder.
Right.
And everyone's up in arms about this murder because it was in this very wealthy white suburb.
Murder in Parkwold. Yeah.
He learns that his son is dead. He and his wife, who's not very well, make the journey to Johannesburg. And he starts learning about some of the things that his son was involved in. Some of his writing. He's never been to his house before. All of the thinkers and the writers and the historical figures that he was interested in. He finds that his son has... This would have been so cool to be in a movie because it's such an interesting visual.
Yeah.
He has a whole bookshelf full of books about Abraham Lincoln.
Uh-huh.
And Jarvis is like... In the book, it's like he actually hadn't realized that so many books had been written about any single man. But he has a whole shelf of books about Abraham Lincoln, all the things that he's been writing. He was the patron of this boys club for, the youth, to give them somewhere to go. They're still searching for the murderers, and they find the murderer, and the police find him, and it turns out the police kind of go on the exact same goose chase that Mr. Mangu and Kumalo went on, and then they start following the police to ask if the police have been there. So sort of there's three cycles of this chase from person to person to person.
Can I reduce book 2 down?
Sure.
Book 2 is the story of Absalom's trial and conviction.
Yes. He is tried, he is convicted, he is sentenced to death.
And so it's done as a continuation of Kamalo's story, but the thing that makes it book 2 is now the Jarvis family is being woven into it.
Yes.
That's the thing that really separates it. So it still is one story going from book 1 to book 2. It's still the story of Kamalo and his son, trying to find his son.
Yeah.
But now we meet Jarvis, and now we are actually get to spend time with Jarvis.
Yes, and then do Jarvis and Kumalo meet in book 2, or is that not till book 3?
No, they meet in book 2 because they meet at... Okay, so there's a whole other thing where Kumalo has been sent... Someone from his village is like, can you please check on a family member?
Yeah, my daughter.
He goes to a house to try to find her, and who answers the door but Jarvis?
Because that's where they're staying.
And he is not prepared for that.
Yeah.
And it is my favorite scene in the book.
It's amazing.
And it's because they have two or three big conversations in the book, Jarvis and Kumalo.
Yeah.
And this first one is my favorite.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And because Kumalo is absolutely not prepared for it.
Yeah.
And he is... It's so well written. It's so well written.
It's hard to describe because it's so well written.
And there's no part of it that goes the way I expected it to go.
Yeah.
I don't want to say, and it doesn't go the way you expect because everybody's different. But like me personally, I did not expect it to go the way that it goes.
Yeah.
But then at the end of book 2, Absalom does get convicted.
Yes.
Then book 3 is going back to Indochaney.
Yeah.
They talk about maybe how Absalom will get mercy, but the mercy they're talking about is not he'll get out.
No,
the mercy
it's like he won't be dead.
Yeah, he may get to spend the rest of his life in prison, and he ends up marrying in prison. He ends up marrying the girl,
the nameless girl.
Yeah. And so she comes back to Indochaney, and Gertrude's son comes back with Kumalo, but Gertrude doesn't, as you mentioned.
Yes.
And now they're back. But the third book is all about Jarvis is back in Indochaney.
Yeah.
Kamala's back in Indochaney. And Jarvis is learning to be a better person.
Yes.
Because of what he learned about his son in book 2.
Yes.
And so this is where we get one of the best characters in the entire book, who is the like agricultural planner that they bring in.
This is not in any of the films.
He's great though.
He is great because he's he's very educated and he knows what to do, but he's also kind of jaded and a little bit of a reformer. And Kamala's like, you can't talk about that kind of stuff here.
Yeah. But this is the part where Jarvis is actually starting to do good things for the community, and is actually starting to get some skin in the game.
Yeah, sends them milk because they're in a drought. They're in a terrible drought.
Yeah,
and Jarvis's grandson comes oh my god, there's the most beautiful this book is so much imagery.
Yeah.
And so like to say like, oh, this thing happened in the plot that's related to an image that happened 150 pages ago is like a little bit rough, but there is one of my favorite moments in the book, because it's so beautiful, is when they're at the priest's home in Johannesburg, and they're just all learning about this murder that's happened. And they're sitting around the table and they're reading the newspaper. And one of the priests says, oh, Reverend Khumalo, did you know this man? Because he came from where you live. He came from Indochina. And Khumalo's like, well, I've seen the father. I mean, it's not like we know each other because he's a rich white man and I'm a black priest. He says but he sometimes used to ride past my church, so I would see him. I don't remember the boy. And then he pauses and he says, but I do remember there was a small bright boy who also used to ride past the church. And then there's this moment that Alan Paton says, and they were silent, for who is not silent when someone is dead who was a small bright boy.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
you'll learn someday.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was the thing I meant to kind of say in the beginning, and I'm just going to drop this in here, is I had not read this book since becoming a parent to a small bright boy.
Yeah.
And so there were a couple of scenes that were rough for me.
But there is another small bright boy.
There's another small bright boy. And that was the part that I actually wept.
Yeah.
This is the grandson. And he's staying with the grandparents, of course, because of this thing that happened. And he starts writing down, and he's interested in, he wants to learn how to speak Zulu. So he's taking Zulu lessons from Khumalo, and Khumalo happens to mention that like they don't have milk in the town. And the boy says, well, what do the children do? And Khumalo's like, well, they die.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, what? They die? Who's dying? And he's like, well, there's this one particular child that is dying, and the doctor says he has to have milk. Well, what did the parents say? They said, we hear you. Like, it's just like, we hear that. We have no milk. And so then literally the next day, Jarvis starts to send down like cartons, you know what I mean? Like vast amounts of milk.
This again goes back to me like reading this as a very angry book.
Yeah.
Because this is Paton like talking to all of these hoping that all of the shitty white people that are enjoying this system and perpetuating the system are going to read this book, and he's going, see this kid gets it. Why don't you get it?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, kind of going back to what I was saying before, it's sort of pointing and saying like, are you sad that this guy got shot and this guy's getting executed? Are you sad that this fictional kid is dying? What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Can I just read a short paragraph?
Are you going to cry?
No, I'm not going to cry. I'm not even sure that this was the part that I was crying, but I this is actually a part I want to read because I think it will give a sense of the lyrical nature of the book.
Yeah.
And it is talking about also one of the boys from the village, a small boy dancing with joy as they're walking back from the train, because they're also happy that the Umfundis is back.
Yeah.
Peyton is kind of referencing back to that, and he says, call, O small boy, with the long tremulous cry that echoes over the hills. Dance, O small boy, with the first slow steps of the dance that is for yourself. Call and dance, innocence, call and dance while you may. For this is a prelude, it is only a beginning. Strange things will be woven into it by men you have never heard of, in places you have never seen. It is life you are going into. You are not afraid because you do not know. Call and dance, now while you may.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was like, fuck you, Alan Paton.
One of the things that I did that struck me there, because I'm thinking about Cry the Beloved Country, I'm thinking about that section, is that I feel like Alan Paton has a really good understanding or a really strong interest in generational trauma.
Yeah.
And how, like, just how generational trauma functions and how it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I read that section?
No, but I agree with you, and I just wanted to mention to illustrate your point.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention something that is in that third part of the book that's not in any of the. But by the way, this third part of the book where they're doing like agriculture and stuff is not in any of the movies.
No, it's like it's in all of them. Oh, the agricultural stuff.
The agricultural stuff.
No. Like the whole third part of the book is the last 10 minutes of each movie.
Yeah. The agricultural demonstrator says to Kamala, like, I mean, we're starting this work now. it's going to take years. Like, this will take years. The soil is so bad. Like, this is all about education of like the people to not do the things that they have been doing for generations because it is harmful and we know better now. And Kumalo basically says, as long as it's before I die. And then he says, before I have lived my life in destruction. And like, that's such an odd thing for such a good character to say. I have lived my life in destruction. That's deep.
Yeah.
Like, that's rough.
Yeah. It's almost like it's written by someone who's very angry.
Yeah.
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 But I want to read the Cry the Beloved Country part.
Please.
Because I certainly can read it just as well as James Earl Jones does in 1995. Because I didn't understand the title, but the title comes from a chapter that I feel like you could just completely get rid of and the plot would not change at all.
Sure, because it's like a poem.
Yeah, it's just a poem in the middle of the book about, I think it's after the murder has happened.
Yeah.
And it's about the fear that's in the native community.
Yeah.
He keeps referring to South Africa as the beloved country.
Yeah.
So instead of calling it South Africa, call it the beloved country, and the people call them the beloved country. Cry the beloved country for the unborn child that is the inheritor of our fear. Let him not love the earth too deeply. Let him not laugh too gladly when the water runs through his fingers, nor stand too silent when the setting sun makes red the veld with fire. Let him not be too moved when the birds of his land are singing, nor give too much of his heart to a mountain or a valley, for fear will rob him of all if he gives too much. And like, that's angry.
Yeah.
It's so angry. It's so despondent, and it's so hopeless.
Yeah.
Like, it will never get better.
Yeah.
We should not be happy. Just watch it, because we will always be more afraid than we are ever happy, and the fear will ruin everything.
Yeah.
It's a gut punch. It's a gut punch.
But can I read you the corresponding paragraph, which is the last paragraph of the book?
Yes, absolutely.
And then maybe we'll move on from the book. And this is as Kumalo is praying for his son, he's up in the mountains praying for his son who is being executed at this moment.
Yeah.
Because they told him it's the dawn of this day. Yes, it is the dawn that has come. The titihoya, which is a bird, wakes from sleep and goes about its work of forlorn crying. The sun tips with light the mountains of Ngeli and East Griqualand. The great valley of the Umzimkulu is still in darkness, but the light will come there. Indochine is still in darkness, but the light will come there also. For it is the dawn that has come, as it has come for 1,000 centuries, never failing. But when that dawn will come, of our emancipation from the fear of bondage and the bondage of fear, why, that is a secret.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of talk when Kumalo is going through his dark night of the soul that like God has a plan, but the plan is a secret. You cannot know it, so you just have to suffer through. Like you just have to do it. It's a secret.
Uh-huh.
You're not to know because it's a secret.
And I feel like that's a whole other issue we could talk about for hours, but
Yeah.
it doesn't change the fact that like that is the point of view that drives the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. All right. I think we might be at the end of our discussion of this book.
It's a really good book.
It's a really good book. Just welcome to Book Talk.
I'm really glad that we are so aligned on the book, because I'm worried we won't be as aligned as we talk about the movies.
That is possibly true. I just wanted to say one more thing about my personal relationship to this book.
Yes.
When I was a high school student, I was on the speech and debate team. I didn't do debate. I did speech. I did the prose event. If anybody's done forensics, I did the prose event. My junior year. So basically the way that it works is you pick an event and you have a piece, and that's the piece you do basically all year. We went to, I think it was called sectionals, regionals. And then, if you do well enough, you may go to state. This might be a deep cut for our listeners, and maybe not, because our listeners are all librarians. Yeah. So they've probably been to a forensics competition. But I did the prose event. I was in the National Forensics Association. And my 11th grade year, my piece was Cry the Beloved Country. I did the first chapter, that sort of like lyrical poem. I guess that's the prologue. And then the first chapter when the child runs to Kumalo and his house and like has the letter, and they're talking, he and his wife are talking about the letter and do they need to go to Johannesburg. I will say I did the accents, which is not okay. Like in retrospect, looking back 25 years later, it was not okay.
Sweetie, this is very brave of you.
Yeah. It is not okay. However, I also will say I did extremely well with that piece. I won the prose event in our sectionals, and I went to state. I took that piece to state.
There you go.
And I did a really good job with it. My senior year, I did a piece from A Movable Feast by Ernest Hemingway. And I did not do the part where F. Scott Fitzgerald is concerned about the size of his penis and Hemingway has to reassure him.
Oh, is that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did a part about Gertrude. I did a part where Gertrude Stein is in, because I was really obsessed with Gertrude Stein.
Yeah.
My senior year of high school. As who was not.
Sure.
I didn't do as well with that piece, but I just little semi brag. I did Cry the Beloved Country. It was very well received, and I took it to state.
Mm-hmm. What year was that?
That would have been 2001.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's literally 25 years ago. I'm very sorry about the accents. I should not have done that. That was not appropriate.
Well, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
So this book is published in 1948, right before, like, that's one of the weird things for me because I didn't know the exact timing of it all, but because I knew that apartheid was something that was largely not policy, but then it became policy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know exactly when that happened, and I didn't know that it happened after this book was published.
Interesting.
So the book, the segregation and apartheid the book is talking about is not the policy version of it.
Yeah, it's informal.
Yeah. And so it gets worse.
Yeah.
Like the world got worse after the book was
because
published.
there's a lot of points where he says, like, this was the custom, this was not the custom.
Right.
So it's like, it's the custom to be separated, but it's not the law to be separated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, of course, it became the law.
Yeah.
So in 1948, now in 1949, there was a musical that was made of it called Lost in the Stars.
Yep.
But let's table that for a second.
Yep.
We'll come back to it.
Yep.
Because also in 1951, there was a movie that was made. And it was an English production.
Yep.
Called Cry the Beloved Country. It was directed by Hungarian director Zoltan Korda. So Jewish Hungarian director directing a British production of Cry the Beloved Country, shot in South Africa. And it was written by Alan Paton with an uncredited John Howard Lawson co-wrote it.
Yeah. I think also produced by Alan Paton.
Yeah. He was involved.
Yeah, he was involved.
Heavily involved. And I'll just throw out these three people. Canada Lee was Stephen Kumalo, Sidney Poitier was Misimangu, and Charles Carson was James Jarvis.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about this one.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a movie that no one talks about.
I knew about it, assumed it wasn't good, and had never seen it.
Yeah. In fact, one of the reasons we're doing this right now is because a really loving restoration of it just came out, and I saw that it was out, and I was like, "Sweetie, do you want to do Cry the Beloved Country? Because that old one is it looks good now."
Yeah,
and we
I was
can
like,
watch it.
if I do it, you'll read the book, and you're like, yeah, and I was like, sold.
Yeah, I guess we could just do the quick version really quickly.
Yeah.
Quick reactions to this movie. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. We got through the first scene. It is the first scene from the book. And I turned to you and I said, no matter what happens from here on out in this movie, it can't be bad, because that was really good. And I was surprised by how good it was.
Yep.
And then I feel like it did not disappoint. It was very good.
Yeah.
It was very touching. It was very thoughtful. I loved, and you mentioned this while we were watching it, but a lot of the people in it are not really actors.
No.
But it was so the way that they got the sort of mix of actors and non-actors was really good. It felt authentic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It felt like the people that made it. I mean, this may be spoiling our quadrants, but it felt like the people that made it really cared about the story and knew what they wanted to say.
I feel like, if I ever think about the fact that we try to ask the question, did they care about the source material?
Yeah.
Because we don't know. We never know.
We never know.
We're just making an educated guess.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the one I would hold up to say, this is why we feel like we can say that.
Well, Alan Paton clearly cared about his own book.
Yeah.
That's obvious.
But I think Korda really cared about it too, and the producers really cared about it. My quick reaction to it is I loved this movie.
Yeah, it was really
this movie's
good.
So
it
good.
was really good.
This movie, I would go ahead and say is almost perfect.
Yeah.
There's one part of it that's not perfect, which I don't know why I'm saving it like it's a spoiler. It's the end.
Yeah.
I think it kind of whiffs it at the end a little bit.
Yeah.
But other than that, it is so good.
The last 20 minutes had us confused because we were like, there must be scenes that they cut.
Yeah.
Because it really kind of jumped from place to place to place. And we were like, well, we know what happened, but then they just show up in Indushaney and Gertrude's not with them and it's never mentioned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there was some other thing that there was a conversation and we were like, wait, there's a scene that was cut.
They're talking about Jarvis and someone references the milk that Jarvis had delivered, but that never happened. Yeah. So it's confusing.
It was confusing. And I truly believe there must have been scenes that were cut because the last I would say 20 minutes kind of felt like greatest hits.
Yeah.
And did not feel like a cohesive film. But who knows? Like maybe those scenes were lost, or who knows what that was about.
I mean, I don't think this movie was treated with a lot of love and respect after that, because it wasn't really something that a lot of people talked about, and it wasn't a big hit. It was not the kind of thing that I never hear people.
So I'm not prepared
to
to sit in judgment because I don't know what happened there.
We'll talk about the cast for a second.
Yeah, please.
Sidney Poitier,
You got a crush on Sidney Poitier.
He's really good.
He's really good. He's really good. I feel, I mean, how old was he? 25 or something like that?
Yeah.
He has this great height and great presence, and I feel like he hadn't quite learned how to use that powerfully. Yet he just felt physically awkward in a lot of scenes. And like, that's nothing against Sidney Poitier, but like sometimes it felt like he didn't know what to do with his hands.
I never noticed that.
He just felt like physically sometimes he would like sit down and his hands were just like hovering in the air. I'm not saying that is a bad thing. Listen, if this is my only criticism of this movie, that Sidney Poitier occasionally maybe didn't know what to do with his hands, that's not that bad.
No, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
That's fine. I didn't even notice that.
I did.
But I actually think there's not as much to talk about with Sidney Poitier, because Missy Mongo is more of a minor character as compared to Kamalo and Jarvis.
Yeah. And this movie did not seem that interested in Missy Mongo. I feel like the 95 was a little more interested in his journey.
A bit more, yeah. But Kamalo.
Yeah.
Canada Lee.
He's so good.
Is so good.
Have I ever seen him in anything else?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Because he was in very little, and he died like the next year.
Yeah.
He died in his 40s.
Yeah.
I watched a biography of him. That was also on the Blu-ray with this.
Of course it was.
It was really good. It was an interview given by a biographer about him, and he led a very interesting life. He was like a musician, and then he decided he wanted to be a jockey, so he was a jockey. Then he was a boxer.
Okay.
And then I don't know if you noticed in the movie that one of his eyes, that he's blind in one eye.
I did not notice.
Did you not notice that?
No, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. So
I was watching Sidney Poitier's hands.
Yeah, and I can tell. But he got hit really hard in the ring, and he lost sight in his right eye.
Yeah.
The retina detached.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And so in the movie, like I noticed. I'm surprised you didn't notice.
I didn't notice. But now if you showed it to me, I probably would notice immediately.
He's got like the Peter Falk thing going on.
Yeah.
But
Does Peter
anyway,
Falk only have one eye?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I don't know about people's eyes. I don't know.
I
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, now I do.
I'm just saying.
You learn something new every day.
Uh-huh.
You don't mock people for learning something new.
No.
That's like
I thought you were about to say you don't mock someone for having one. Lord, no.
I don't do that either.
No, so he lost his sight in his right eye and tried to keep it under the radar, but they found out and wouldn't let him box anymore.
I see.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
And then he kind of fell into acting.
What an interesting person.
And he became really good friends with this guy, Orson Welles, who hadn't made Citizen Kane yet. Like, he met Orson Welles in the theater.
Yeah.
And so you know about the all-black production of Macbeth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do know about that.
He's in that.
Of course I know about that.
Yeah. Of course. No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't, I wasn't asking if you did. I was assuming that you did.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was in that.
Yes.
And then he was in the production of Native Son that Welles produced.
Oh, okay. Like the radio... Was it a radio play?
It was a play. I think it was theater.
Like a play.
I think it was a play.
Oh, okay.
So he was really good friends with Orson Welles.
Yeah.
And then his big entrance into film was he was in Hitchcock's Lifeboat.
Okay.
And then he got immediately blacklisted.
Good.
During the blacklist.
Good.
Because he was very outspoken politically.
Well, that's good.
And that's the thing you don't want to be if you don't want to get blacklisted.
Yeah.
And he got blacklisted, which fucking sucks. And is wrong. It was wrong then. A lot of people knew it was wrong then and did a lot of yelling about it, but it did happen. But then Cry the Beloved Country came across, and he was like, I can't do this. And they're like, we're British.
Yeah.
We don't
you can
give
do whatever you want.
We don't give a shit about the blacklist. And you seem like you're very good, and we want you for this. So he went and did Cry the Beloved Country.
Yeah.
And then he died the next year.
Amazing.
And this was a huge project for him, because not only was he going to star in it, but also he had ulterior motives. And the entire time they were shooting it, he was gathering material about segregation in South Africa.
Oh, that's fascinating.
That he was going to come back.
So it was literally a spy.
Yeah,
so basically, they blacklisted a like listed, including an actual spy.
But it's not in a spy type way.
In a good way.
Yeah,
of course.
Exactly. That's the thing. They blacklisted him for being a communist.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a communist.
No, he was a spy.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm pro-spy. Just to be clear, I'm pro-spy.
This is one of the things that I wanted to make sure I mentioned, because it leads to something bigger about the movie, that I don't think this objectively makes the movie better or worse. For me, though, it enriches the movie.
Yeah.
because when I look at like this one versus the 95 version, they're made in very different circumstances.
For sure, yeah.
Because they're both about apartheid, they're both about segregation, and they're both about political turmoil in South Africa in the 40s. One of them had the luxury of being made at a time...
Well, one of them is historical fiction, and the other one is not.
The other one is current.
Yes, correct.
So, like, the famous story about this not-so-famous movie is that the only way that they could shoot it in South Africa is they had to tell the South African government, these two people, Canada Lee and Sidney Poitier, they're not actors. They're the indentured servants of our director, Zoltan Korda. And they had to pretend to be his servants.
I'm sorry, this is not a visual medium because I don't know.
Did we not talk about this?
I don't know what my face just did, but I think that's the most shocking thing I've ever heard you say.
Yeah. And that was how important it was to them to make this movie. Like, Canada Lee and Sidney Poitier were sold.
Yeah.
They were like, that's what we have to do. That's fucked up.
We're on the down low, yeah.
Yeah, but like, if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. So like, every moment in this movie that tries to accurately depict the turmoil and the plight of Black people in South Africa, they were doing that. This is a very rock and roll movie.
Well, I mean, every scene that they're in is literally a crime.
Yeah.
It's like Trevor Noah, like Born a Crime.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like, they're literally doing something illegal every scene that they're in.
Yes.
That's amazing. I love that.
Like that.
I feel so much more positively toward this movie now. Not that I didn't before.
Yeah. But like, doesn't it enrich the movie?
Yeah, it's amazing. That's amazing.
But it doesn't objectively make the movie better or worse.
No, it's just amazing.
But it's incredible to know that going into it. Canada Lee seemed like just an immensely interesting person, and then he died the next year.
Yeah.
So that's a whole aspect about the making of the movie that I just think is absolutely fascinating. In talking a little more about the structure of the movie, there's two things that I think worked really well. One was a change. It kind of represents a number of changes, but one is how faithful it was.
Yeah.
So as far as changes go, it moves things around a little bit.
Yeah.
So like, we meet Jarvis way earlier in the plot. We meet him very, very early.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this was something Paton wrote in his draft of the screenplay, but he was a producer on it, so he must have been cool with it. But I think from a filmmaking standpoint, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. And I would also say that like having the first scene of the movie be the first scene from the book lets you know as an audience that you're in good, safe hands.
Yes.
By people that know and appreciate the book.
Right.
So like after they do that scene, then they can shake it up a little bit. But like if the first scene was about Jarvis, you'd be like, wait, do they not know this is not about Jarvis?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you decided to make the first scene in your version about Jarvis, like, that's a mistake.
Yeah,
that's clearly a mistake.
Not that anybody did that, but I'm just saying, actually, I think someone did that. Someone did do that.
I'm doing a bit.
Oh,
Were you not doing a bit?
I wasn't doing a bit, and then I remembered. I remember that I've seen Lost in the Stars.
I'm really excited to talk about Lost in the Stars, because in every way that this one is wonderful, that one is not. But anyway, that's for later in the conversation.
But I think it's very smart when you're speaking of adaptation in general. I think it's very smart to do like essentially a page to screen translation of that very first scene, and so people that love the book are like, oh, okay, they get this.
Yeah,
and then you can kind of mix it around a little bit.
Right. So I think that's really strong. Like, I think it shows a very light hand in terms of moving things around, but I think it does it in a really smart way.
Yeah.
So in terms of the changes it makes, I think that's really good. But here's the thing it doesn't change that I absolutely love. It can't keep the like lyrical poetic quality because it's a totally different art form.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do this type of poetry in a movie.
Yeah. To be clear, the dialogue is not that in the book. The dialogue is not that. The dialogue is very slice of life dialogue.
Yes. Yeah. But as far as tone goes, this movie is the tone of the book.
Yeah.
For me. And I know that's a totally subjective thing.
No, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah, but
it's really good.
It's so straightforward and simple.
Yeah.
It's not there's nothing ostentatious about the production of this movie. Yeah. I saw someone compare it to Bicycle Thieves. Have you ever seen Bicycle Thieves, or have you just heard about it?
No.
Would it surprise you to hear that Bicycle Thieves is actually really good?
I don't know anything about Bicycle Thieves.
The Bicycle Thief?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You know what that is?
No.
Italian movie. It's about am I in a film school bubble?
You are in a film school bubble. I don't know what you're talking about. Is it the red balloon?
No, it's not the red balloon.
Okay.
No.
Then I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Bicycle thief. Oh, Jesus
Don't
Christ.
look it up. Look it up. I don't know what it is.
Hang on.
I went to art school.
Bicycle Thieves, also known as The Bicycle Thief, is a 1948 Italian neo-realist drama directed by Vittorio De Sica.
I just want to ask if you just said that. No, I don't know what that is. I have no idea what you're talking about. You kind of read that out to me as if you were trying to prove that it exists. I believe you.
I just wanted to give some context for people listening. That wasn't me saying that to you.
I've become angered now.
Okay, I feel like you could watch both. Okay, first of all, it's a very good movie, but their tone is very similar.
Okay,
they're trying to be feel more like documentarian. Even though it's clearly fiction. It's not trying to convince you that it's a documentary, but it is trying to say, this is life. We're showing you something real. These may be actors, but what we're showing you is real.
Okay.
And a huge part of that goes to the thing you mentioned before about using non-actors in it.
Yes.
And they do that so well because you have this core cast of Canada Lee and Sidney Poitier, and I had already mentioned him, but Jarvis is Charles Carson, he's very good.
Yeah.
He's just a very good Jarvis, and he's a very good actor, but they're very traditional trained actors, good screen actors. But then we get all these minor characters who range from people who are also very good trained actors to people they plucked off the street.
Yeah, and like just to give the women a shout out, I felt like the actress who played Kumala's wife, and the actress who played Absalom's girlfriend were both extremely good. I have no idea who they are or what their acting experience was up to that point.
Like, I don't know who came from London with the crew.
Yeah.
I don't know who was hired in South Africa. I know that Absalom, Lionel Gakani, he's South African.
Yeah. Which is interesting because he did the least for me of anybody, only because he looked like about 38. He did not look like a frightened young boy to me.
He looked like 14 going on 38.
He just had, you know what? It was like he had a beard. They made the interesting choice to put him in like kind of a scruffy beard.
I thought he had like just a mustache.
It might have been the mustache.
Yeah.
There was some kind of facial hair situation. Listen. Don't split hairs with me. There was some kind of facial hair situation that made him look old, and it just was not working for me.
He felt to me like a young man trying to tell people that he's older than he is. Which I think is appropriate for the character.
Yes. I was just getting old.
Anyway, the authenticity of the movie is
not in dispute.
But and when I say that, I want to be really clear that I'm not necessarily saying this movie is completely truthful. It's very plausible, though.
Yes.
Which works really, really well. But yeah, the tone is spot on. And I think the tone it's the editing and the photography and the realism of it. And I think that's supported by the non-actors that are in it. Those were my favorite things about it.
Yeah.
Can I tell you another thing that I really liked about this that we both responded to?
Please.
The trial in the book. The trial does take up a good portion of that second part.
A good chunk.
We hear a lot of people talking. There's a lot of stuff going back and forth. Lawyers talking, the judge talking. When the judge delivers his verdict, he's got a whole speech to give.
Right. He has a very intense speech about the nature of justice.
And it's all good.
It's all amazing.
All of it. No problems with any of it.
Maybe not for film, though.
And in the movie, we don't see anything. Yeah, we cut straight to the verdict.
Cut to guilty.
It's just guilty. And you know what? That's fine. If you are going to cut it down, that's a way to cut it down.
It's funny because the reason we responded to it is because we were so far into the movie, the runtime of the movie, which is I think an hour and 20 minutes or something like this.
It's not very long.
It's not very long. And we're so maybe a little longer than that, but like we were so far into the runtime of the movie.
I think we were at an hour and 20 minutes when this happened. Yeah.
And you and I were like, what's their plan? And then it was like guilty, and we were like, yes, that's fine. That's a way to handle it.
Yep. Yeah, because it's not Absalom's story; it's Kumalo's story.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Absalom is just like he's the MacGuffin in it at that point. And then, like my only beef with this thing is the end that we already talked about. Mm-hmm. Is just kind of stumbles.
Yeah,
it just kind of whiffs it at the end a little bit.
Yeah, and although I was a little harsh on it while we were watching it, like I said before, I don't want to judge it because I'm not. If you said to me, they lost a big chunk of their physical film reel and couldn't get it back, and that's why it feels weird. You know, like in A Star Is Born where they had to add all those stills in the Judy Garland one?
Yeah.
I would believe you. I don't know if that's what happened, but I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, especially since they were doing like this rock and roll production, like under the eye of the police, the South African police.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Truly. I'm going to spoil this right now. This is my favorite one.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't get any better than this one.
It's really good. It's really good.
It's so good. Find it and watch it. Read the book first.
Yeah.
I definitely think read the book first.
Yeah, just because of the end. Just because the end, I think, may be confusing if you haven't read the book.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When we started this whole thing,
this journey,
I feel like you were expecting some quality on account of you've read the book.
Yes.
It was a good book.
Yeah.
You've seen the 95 version.
Many times.
Yep. You've never seen the 51 version.
No, I'd never seen it.
But like Sidney Poitier was in it.
Mm-hmm.
What were you expecting?
I'm not sure what I was expecting.
But you weren't expecting it to be bad.
No, I mean, probably not.
But Lost in the Stars.
Yes.
What were you expecting with Lost in the Stars?
I had dismal hopes.
Okay.
Because I went to see a staged production of Lost in the Stars. New York City Center used to do this series. I think they still do it, called like Encores or something like that. That they would like do more than a staged reading, but less than a full production. And it was usually like very short, like a couple weekends maybe.
Yeah.
It would be like an older musical in concert, and usually they would have like some costume, like lightly staged.
Okay, so you'd been to see a production in this context.
Of Lost in the Stars.
So I'm going to stop you there for a second.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
I said earlier that there was this musical made, and then we just didn't talk about it. We went straight to 1951.
Yeah.
Let's go back. In 1949, there was this musical, Lost in the Stars. Book and lyrics by Maxwell Anderson, who we've talked about before.
Yeah, he wrote The Bad Seed.
Exactly. And music by Kurt Weill.
Who you were unfamiliar with.
Not very familiar with. I'd certainly heard the name.
Yeah.
And when you told me...
When I said Mac the Knife.
Yeah, like I am familiar with his work.
Yes.
I know very little of his work, but
Yes.
I don't think I know as much about it as you do.
Yeah.
With your background in theater.
I know very little of his work.
Well, I know about The Bicycle Thieves.
Yeah.
It came out in October 1949. And it ran until July 1950, and it ran for 281 performances.
It's a pretty good run.
It starred Todd Duncan as Kamalo. Is there anything you'd like to talk about for a moment about Kurt Weill, just to let folks know?
Yeah, he was a German Jewish composer who left Germany and moved to Hollywood. I want to say like before the war.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that. I don't have a lot of biographical detail. But he was known for this sort of like Berlin jazz club, avant-garde type of music. He worked a lot with Brecht.
Mm-hmm.
So like his music is a little weird, a little atonal, not very, but like it certainly has a certain jazzy style to it. The shows that I'm aware of that he worked on are sort of intentionally theatrical and maybe break the fourth wall a little bit. I may not be, I'm not super familiar with Kurt Weill. So I may not be describing it too well. Like if somebody who's listening is like really an expert, they might be like, you are wrong. And here are all the reasons why.
But like, it's a hint. It's a hint of what to expect.
Yes, that's what I would expect.
Because I felt like when we were kind of going through and watching Lost in the Stars, the version of it that we could watch, you made a point that I thought was really interesting, which is that, well, the book was a little avant-garde.
Yeah.
And Kurt Weill worked on things that were a little avant-garde.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it make sense?
Right. That maybe it was thought, because we sort of said, where's the match?
Yeah.
Why is this a match? And we kind of thought, well, maybe it was thought that it was more of a match stylistically, as opposed to plot or background wise.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the background.
Yeah.
Let's go back to your experience of actually seeing a quote unquote production of it.
Yes.
How was that?
Well, when I was in grad school, we got free tickets to everything. We get emails probably almost every day or like multiple times a day. Like, hey, there's free tickets to this. Just reply and you get a free ticket. Usually what happened was producers, especially in like preview type situations, producers really wanted to like fill the seats. And so they would offer free tickets to like the theater grad students up at Columbia, in addition to God knows who else.
Sure.
Basically, we were told that there were sort of two obligations for accepting these free tickets. You know, you had to behave yourself, like
that makes sense.
as a theater goer. Like proper theater etiquette, which was not hard to respect. But the other obligation was you have to stay through the whole thing because they're giving you a ticket to fill a seat for the optics of having the seat filled.
Yeah.
And like it actually looks worse to go and then leave than to not go at all. You know what I mean? They don't want to have the optics of people leaving the theater and not coming back.
It's interesting to me that you're kind of talking so heavily about this one aspect of it.
And so that was like very, very frowned upon, and you could have your like your ticket privileges taken away. And the whole time I was at Columbia, I probably saw 200 shows, maybe more, probably 250 shows in 2 years.
Right.
And I walked out of 2 of them. At intermission.
What was the one that wasn't Lost in the Stars?
It was a play called Boeing Boeing.
I forgot. You've told me about this one.
Which is why Mark Rylance is kind of my secondary nemesis, because this is a tangent. But it felt like The Emperor's New Clothes. Like the audience was laughing, and I was sitting there. A whole Broadway theater was laughing, and I was sitting there going, "I don't understand what's funny. What are they laughing at? I don't even know what the joke was supposed to be." It was a very well-received play.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the worst plays I've ever seen. The other thing I walked out of was Lost in the Stars. Left at intermission. Left to get a breath of air and did not come back.
Which is weird because when we looked at how it was received critically at the time, it was, oh, wait, hang on. No, it was not liked then either.
Yes. And it was also not liked, as I discovered from the Wikipedia page, also not liked by Alan Paton.
Yes.
Who apparently strenuously disagreed with the changes they made to the ending.
Can I read this this section from a review at the time from critic Brooks Atkinson?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, old Brooks Atkinson?
Yeah, for the New York Times.
He has a theater named after him, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Brooks Atkinson Theater.
Interesting. In his 1949 review, he wrote that Maxwell Anderson and Mr. Weil had encountered, quote, obvious difficulty, unquote, in transforming, quote, so thoroughly a work of literary art, unquote, into theater, and was sometimes, quote, skimming and literal where the novel is rich and elusive,
yeah,
unquote. I felt, you ever read a bad review and it's very vindicating?
Yeah.
Just like, because I can imagine from what you described of seeing Boeing Boeing is that you felt kind of out of step with everybody else.
Yes.
Whereas with Lost in the Stars, it seems like not
very
liking it
is
kind of the popular opinion.
Yeah, and it's weird because I feel like it's rare for a musical to sort of have lasted and survived and be extant and like genuinely be really bad.
Yeah.
Because I think most of the musicals that we've seen or talk about or that get performed and that get revived are musicals that like people agree. Like you can have a bad production, but I feel like people tend to agree like the work itself is fine to good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like because there's so much, especially these days, so many resources that go into the staging and production of a new musical. Often they're very bland, but they're usually not like, wow, this was an artistic work that just didn't work. I mean, I guess sometimes they are. I don't know what I'm saying. Do you know what I'm saying? I just feel like it's rare that we talk about a musical that's now 75 years old, that the consensus was at the time and is, I think now, like, it's not very good. Like, it has some songs that were covered and recorded a lot, like, out of context.
Yeah.
Which I think is what has given it a little more staying power than I think it otherwise would have had. I'm so sorry. I keep cutting you off. You look like you're going to say something.
Well, I just think there's something to be said for the fact that when the only positive words you can see about it are coming from people who are currently involved in a production of it, that says something.
Sure.
Because, of course, if you're currently involved in it, you're going to talk it up. That's the business part of show business.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
But if no one else is also saying that it's good, or if very few people are also saying that it's good, then that's a problem.
Yeah. But one interesting thing that this bad musical got that I feel like a lot of bad musicals don't get was a film production.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So that's why
explain the context here.
Okay, so from 1973 to 1975, there was this thing called American Film Theater. The American Film Theater presented 2 seasons of filmed plays in about 500 movie theaters across the United States from 1973 to 1975. For example, The Iceman Cometh, Rhinoceros, Three Sisters. Jacques Brel is alive and well and living in Paris.
Yeah.
These were some of the things that they had done.
But correct me, they weren't like just filmed stage productions.
No.
They filmed they shot them like movies.
There were a couple that were stage productions.
I see.
So there was some variety in them.
Okay.
From what I could see about it, it wasn't like every single one of them was bad.
Yeah.
But it seems like a bunch of them were bad.
Yeah.
And a couple of them were good.
Yeah.
Quite good. But not Lost in the Stars.
Yeah.
I mean, the best thing that I can kind of compare, if someone wants to kind of visualize what this is imagine TV movies.
Yeah.
But they were released in theaters.
Yeah. I mean, I think nothing will give you a better image for this movie that we're about to talk about than when we tell you this film, set in South Africa, was shot on location in Cottage Grove, Oregon.
Yeah.
The Pacific Northwest has many charms, but one of them famously is not that it resembles South Africa in any stretch of the imagination. The latitude alone
it's mountainous.
Is wildly different.
Yeah. You pointed out at one point they were walking through Indochaney and like famously in the book, they are suffering from a drought.
Yes.
And boy, it's green.
Very green. And lots of pine trees.
Very lush, lots of pine trees.
Lots of evergreens.
Uh-huh.
I'm not even going to say it's a choice because I have a feeling that they were working with what they had. And I mean, I think you pointed out that they kept reusing like the same... They had about 6 outdoor locations and they sort of kept reusing them for all kinds of different things. Like the movie is shot definitely like... They're trying to go a little bit, again, like trying to go a little bit avant-garde with it. It's not 100% realistic, which of course it can't be because it's a musical. So they have like a chorus singing at different times. But I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I actually want to read, I rarely do this, but I do want to read my Letterboxd review of this.
Please.
I did give it 1 star
because
I hated it so much. In a movie where nothing works, casting the Pacific Northwest to South Africa doesn't work the most.
Yeah.
But like, I want to really focus on that first part because like that is how I feel. Like nothing in this movie works.
Yes.
There's nothing that works.
We did feel that, we'll go through the cast a little bit because we did feel like some of the cast were talented.
You could tell that there was talent. I mean, the one to talk about is Brock Peters. Who plays Kamalo, and and by the way, it was directed by.
He plays Cisco's dad, by the way, for DS9 fans.
Yeah, he was also in like The Undiscovered Country. Big Star Trek guy.
Yeah,
big Star Trek guy. He was directed by Daniel Mann. It was the screenplay was written by Alfred Hayes. Brock Peters 2 years before had done a Broadway revival.
Yeah.
Of Lost in the Stars. And I think there were other people that were involved, but I didn't see like a definitive list of the people who were involved from that show in this, but I know Brock Peters was.
Yeah.
And he knows it really well, and he sells the hell out of it.
Beautiful voice.
Brock Peters is amazing.
Yeah.
Also, To Kill a Mockingbird. I do appreciate that you went to Cisco's dad first, but he is also in one of the... one of the great American movies, To Kill a Mockingbird.
I've never seen or read To Kill a Mockingbird.
The movie's good.
Yeah.
So is the book.
Yeah.
He's the only one I feel like we really need to talk about.
Yeah, because everyone else is so bad.
Like, fine to bad.
Yeah.
But what's not helping them... So they're not being helped by
anything.
By anything. They're not being helped by the production.
Not being helped by the costumes. That was confusing to me because everyone. Oh, sorry. Did you have a note?
One of my notes that you said, because you didn't have your notebook at the moment, you said write down women's clothing.
Yeah, it's funny because there's no women in the first half of the movie, so you don't really think about it because men's clothing is a little bit more timeless than women's clothing. But then as women start to appear, you're like, wait, is this set in the 70s? Because they're definitely all wearing 70s clothes. They are not wearing 1940s clothes by any stretch of the imagination. So I wasn't sure what they were, because there's a title card at the very beginning that says something like in the not very distant past in South Africa.
Right.
So I wasn't sure if they meant if they had actually moved it forward, and by not very distant past, they meant like a couple years ago, or if they're just saying like, hey, this troubled time was really not that long ago.
I mean, I genuinely wonder, like, moving it up 25 years, how much does that change for the story?
I mean, for this story, not that much.
Not that much?
It doesn't matter. It's because it's nonsense.
But it seems that the way they decided to handle it was just by being kind of hand-wavy and non-specific.
Yeah. So what I went and did was I wrote down the names of all... I went to the Wikipedia page and I wrote down the names of all the songs. And that was when I realized that the movie... I think we thought the movie was more of a straight stage to screen adaptation, and they definitely made some changes.
Yeah, American film theater really sold themselves as like very page accurate.
Yeah.
Like these are the shows that you would have seen on Broadway, the way you would have seen them on Broadway.
They definitely made changes both in like which songs were in it and like what order the songs were in and like things like that. They also changed the ending because I think the ending was famously unlike the book, and they changed it to make it worse. So that's a good choice that they made there, which we can get into in a moment. So what I was thinking we could do is just kind of work our way quickly through some of the songs, because that will help us describe what happens in the movie
very quickly. For it is a poor movie.
It is a poor movie.
For it's a poor movie we're here to talk about.
Lost in the Stars. So it starts with a song sung by like a chorus that you don't see called The Hills of Ikopo, which is just the first chapter of the book set to music.
Yep.
That prologue of the book set to music.
Good music?
No, I would not call it that.
But like
appropriate music? No. Also no.
Okay, so it doesn't like sound.
It doesn't sound
South African.
Absolutely not.
Okay,
absolutely not. Yeah, we were just like so bummed about the sound of the music. It was so not of the place and time.
Well, the thing that I found that really bummed me out was when Kurt Weill was talking about his process. He said that the thing he didn't want to do is he didn't want it to sound. He didn't want tom-toms.
Right. Because that's what African music sounds like.
Right.
Thanks, Kurt Weill.
Yeah. And he also didn't want to just make it sound like American, like spirituals.
Okay, so he did do that.
But then what he said was, but then I started looking into it and I started looking at the local music. And the local music of the time actually did sound a lot like American spirituals, more than you would think. So I just leaned into them sounding like American spirituals.
Yeah.
And
it all sounds like Old Man River.
Yeah. 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 Also, a lot of the songs are reworked from another musical that they were going to make that ended up not getting made.
I read about that.
Yeah.
There's a song called Thousands of Miles, which I don't have a good memory of.
That's one from, you never see Brock Peters singing it, but you hear him singing it. It's when he's walking through Oregon as South Africa.
Yeah. Thinking about his life.
Yeah, just
reflecting.
thinking about, just searching for my son.
Yeah.
Something about I would walk 1,000 miles and I would walk 1,000 more,
et cetera, just to be the man that walked 1,000 miles to find my son that killed a man.
Yeah. Da-da-da-da.
So then there's a song, and this was the moment that we looked at each other and we were like, oh, this is absolutely terrible. Like I think up to that point it had been weak, but this is called Train to Johannesburg.
That's the beginning. That's the second song.
And the lyrics of the song are I'm pretty sure literally just white men go to Johannesburg, black men go to Johannesburg. And just over and over and over again.
It's white man go to Johannesburg, always come back, always come back. I think I'm paraphrasing. Okay. And then it's black man go to Johannesburg, never come back, never come back.
So it's just a group of villagers standing on a train platform in variously exotic states of exotic dress. It has a very Fiddler on the Roof quality to it when like all the villagers
it does
singing.
Remind me of my high school production of Fiddler on the Roof.
It does remind me of your high school production of Fiddler on the Roof, the one in the gym.
Yep.
I feel like I'm not describing well, but it was terrible. There's a song called The Search, and he does find Gertrude, and Gertrude is like, I'm not a character in this movie. Fuck off. But then he takes the son.
Yeah.
So the son is Alex, and he's basically just following Khumalo around for the rest of the movie. Mm-hmm. And Khumalo sings a song to him about where they'll be going when they go back to Indochine, called The Little Grey House, which is about his
little gray house,
his simple house.
Yep.
There's a song that I think they might have cut from the movie called Who'll Buy, because I don't remember that at all. I think it's sung by the name of the character was a female character that I also didn't recognize. So I think maybe it's sung by one of like the sex workers, like in Gertrude's place.
Yeah.
Because then you have Absalom's girlfriend, whose name in this is Irina, singing Trouble Man.
Right.
Which is a terrible song.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Can I stop you for a second?
Please.
Because there's just one thing I want to say about Brock Peters' version of Khumalo.
Yeah.
Wait, and also, by the way, when are you going to get to Missy Mongo's big like introduction song?
Missy Mongo, one of the most important characters, not in this at all. Not in this at all.
Well, that's fucking bullshit.
But they did find time to sing Big Mole for 20 minutes.
It's a whole dance sequence.
There's a dance sequence.
It's bonkers. Yes, Missy Mongo's not in it. So instead of having this fish out of water kind of thing where you have Kumalo, who is absolutely not equipped to walk around Johannesburg.
Yeah.
At least being led by someone who is confident and knows where he is going. The way they've solved it is they've removed Misimango and they've just made Kumalo confident.
He's so confident. He's such a confident, strong character.
It ruins it.
It ruins
everything. Like, even if the music was good, this would ruin it.
Yeah.
This makes it a different thing.
He's so self-assured and like he always knows what to do.
Can I give an example of where, because like in the Little Gray House, when he's doing that, he's very like, don't worry, my child.
Yes.
I will comfort you with this tale, for I am a very confident character.
Yes.
Holding down this play myself, because they cut my friend. The part where it becomes like truly terrible for me is there is the thing in the book where he is talking to Absalom's girlfriend.
Yes.
The soon-to-be mother of Absalom's child.
Yes.
And he says,
who's about 2 weeks pregnant in this because she looks fine.
Yeah. Kamala says to her, you're going to come back to Indochina with me. Like, do you want to marry my son?
Yeah.
And he does a thing that Paton in the book presents as a moment of weakness.
Yes.
He, out of anger, tries a tactic that is bad.
Yes.
He says to her, you'd sleep with anybody.
Yes.
You'd probably sleep with me if I asked you to.
And she's like, And
it makes her very uncomfortable. And he immediately realizes, like, oh God, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Because he's just doing it because he's angry.
Yeah.
He's not actually trying to get anything out of her. He's doing it because he's angry. And he immediately feels bad about it and apologizes. And it's a growth moment for him. In this, they keep it. But because they've given us a Kamalo who is so self-assured and so confident, it comes off as so evil and manipulative.
Yeah.
I hate this Kumalo.
Yeah.
He is a shitty dude, and I don't like him.
Yeah.
And I don't want to play based around him.
Yeah. You know who else is a very, very, very confident and self-assured character in
Who's
this?
that?
Absalom.
Yep.
Remember when he was in court, like giving testimony, and he's just so casually, like leaning with one hand, like on the thing, like he's just like, yeah, I shot him. I don't know.
This does I hate using the phrase, but like I'm going to use it because it's the wrong way to do a story about people who aren't you.
Yeah.
It's very noble savage.
Yeah.
Which is messed up.
Yes.
Because they're not noble savages, they're people.
Yeah.
They're characters.
Well, that's all the more ironic because Alan Paton's novel is one of the great character studies of all time, of literature.
Yeah.
Like every character is so interesting and so different and so multifaceted and so complicated and complex. So it's such a disservice to any one of those characters, from minor to major characters, to be so surface level.
Yeah.
It's
I hate it.
It's a shame.
Like, one of the things that I really like in the book is the way that Absalom is very forthcoming. Is like, I killed him.
Yeah.
I killed Arthur Jarvis. I shot him. I didn't mean to shoot him, and I was scared.
Yeah.
And he's saying it constantly. At least the thing that I got from the book is that he's saying it because he doesn't want to die.
Right.
He's saying it out of fear. He is telling the truth, but he's telling the truth hoping that the truth will
set him
free, if you will. Like, he's hoping that the truth will help him.
Yes.
Because he feels like nothing else will.
Yes.
But he's doing it out of fear. And in the book, in 1951, in 1995, he's doing it out of fear.
Yeah.
But he is telling the truth. He's not like proudly telling the truth.
Yeah.
But in this one, you're talking about him standing there with like leaning in the courtroom going like, I did this.
I'm not proud of it.
And I am not proud of it, but I am proud.
Yeah. All right. So Irina in this is just awful, an awful character. She's either singing or screaming the whole movie.
It's not actress Melba Moore. It's not her fault.
It's not her fault. It's not her fault. No. Surely not. And then there's a song called Murder in Parkwald, which we've been singing to each other. Murder in Parkwald.
It's really easy to remember because the only lyrics are Murder in Parkwald.
And then that goes right into a song called Fear, which is just everyone running around screaming, singing, fear, fear, we're afraid.
If you think we're exaggerating, we are only exaggerating a very little.
Right. And then Kumalo gets his big end of Act 1 number, Lost in the Stars, about how God I don't know. There's some metaphor for God.
There's like a story where God made stars and we're all a star.
One fell and we're lost in the stars.
Yeah.
It is interesting that you make a phrase that alludes to Kumalo's Dark Night of the Soul, the title of the show and the title song of the show, because it makes that the moral, that we're all in a long dark night of the soul, which is the opposite of what Paton intended. What he intended was we're not lost in the stars. It's just a secret. Like, we're not lost. We're on the path. Just where the path leads is a secret.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Mm-hmm. It's also kind of nihilistic. Like when Paton's writing a book that he's hoping will stir people to action, and then you have a musical that's basically going like, no, shit's fucked.
Yeah.
Things are sad.
Yeah. And so then we get Act 2, and I think it says something that this was where I lost interest because I don't really remember any of these songs. So I won't read them out. But there is another big song called Cry the Beloved Country.
Yeah.
And then there's a terrible dance song called Big Mole, sung by some ladies that are not important.
That's in the first act.
Yeah.
That's
in the play, it's not in the first act.
Oh.
Because in the play, it's sung by Alex, like towards the end. And remember, he was singing it a little bit with like some other children.
Right.
But I don't think that dance number is in the play. I'm not sure where that dance number came from.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, not based on the song list available on Wikipedia. I'm not exactly sure what happened there.
You're actually reminding me that there is like a big thing that we need to talk about. It's actually two things.
Yes.
One has to do just really quickly with Alex singing that song at the end.
Yes.
Because one thing that really pissed me off is that that beautiful thing we were talking about before about Kumalo kind of establishing a really like beautiful relationship with Arthur Jarvis's son.
Arthur Jarvis's son. Yes. Yeah.
Not
Yeah. No, I understand.
Arthur Jarvis, the dead guy.
The dead
his
man's son. Yes.
Yeah, the grandson.
Yes, the grandson.
They have a beautiful little like thing that happens at the end of the book.
Yeah.
In the show, they remove this is not Kumalo's scene anymore. Now it's happening between Alex.
Yeah.
Like Kumalo's nephew.
Yes, who they apparently needed to make a major character.
Yeah, and so like it doesn't mean anything anymore because it has nothing to do with Kumalo.
Right.
So that kind of sucks that they're taking something kind of important and taking it away from the character. But the worst part is that they've pretty much told us from the beginning that this is not Kumalo's story.
Yeah.
Because we joked about it before. The whole thing starts with the Jarvis family.
Yep.
We don't meet Kumalo until after we meet Jarvis and Arthur.
And Arthur is not only alive at the beginning, arguing with his father about race relations, and then like he goes, "Oh, there's Stephen Kumalo, my friend," and like goes over and like shakes his hand. Is it ever explained how they know each other? No. It's so important to the plot that they don't know each other. Like, so important that they don't know each other. It's ridiculous.
It kind of misses the point.
And like, it's also so important that Arthur is not a living character. He's this like idea and this presence and this voice, but not alive.
Like in 1950,
they missed the mark so badly.
But like in 1951, you do see him and you see him get shot. You see the murder.
Right.
But he's not a character.
He's not a character.
He's present. He's there, but then he's dead.
Yeah.
And this is totally different.
This is totally different. And then again, to just kind of talk about things that they got so incredibly wrong, the whole thing ends with Kumalo basically begging Jarvis for justice, for mercy for his son, and Jarvis being like, absolutely not, fuck you. And that's like their last interaction.
They have because then they talk again in the woods at the very end. They talk again
in the woods at the very end, and then Kumalo sings a song about how God has forsaken him and tears off his clerical collar. And then there's a freeze frame, and that's the end.
Yep.
He's lost his faith. That's not what the book is about. That's not what it's about. It's literally the opposite of what the book is about. It's about having faith through suffering and using your faith not even using your faith to help you understand your suffering, but using your faith to help you understand that you will not understand the cause of suffering, but it is your duty to continue to endure. That is, I believe, the Christian message of the book. Not. I feel like Alan Paton would be rolling in his grave to see Kumalo like tearing off his clerical collar.
He was alive at the time. I mean,
they may have killed him.
Yeah.
It may have driven him to his grave.
Yeah, maybe. So anyway, this is a movie where nothing works.
Yes.
And let's move on, please.
Let's move on.
I'm scared to talk about this next one. In 1995, there was a new film version. in a new South Africa.
Yeah.
It was directed by Daryl Root. It was written by Ronald Harwood and Joshua Sinclair. And it starred James Earl Jones as Khumalo and Richard Harris as the father Jarvis.
R.I.P. to both.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time we've talked about James Earl Jones since his recent death.
I believe so.
Yeah.
This was a movie we watched together a long time ago because you've seen this movie many times and you love it. And I'd never seen it. And we did a project years ago where we went and we showed each other a whole bunch of movies the other had never seen.
Yeah.
And I watched it with you then. And I thought this was a nice movie.
I feel like you're candy coating it because you told me when you watched it you didn't like it.
I like it much more now.
Yeah.
Because I have more context now.
Yes.
Please talk about all the wonderful things. Because this is, I just want to be clear. The thing I think we're going to fight about is not that we disagree about what makes this movie good.
Yeah. I mean, I think having now talked with you about your feelings about the 1951 movie, I think I have a sense of what you're going to say as far as negatives for this movie. So let me talk about what I like, and then I might guess at what you maybe didn't like as much.
And I think it's probably pretty likely I'm going to agree wholeheartedly with every single thing you say that you like about it.
So, I mean, first of all, if you're talking about the book Cry the Beloved Country as a character study, I think that the two leads, Richard Harris and James Earl Jones, is between the two of them absolutely inspired casting and the roles they were born to play. And the two of them have unbelievable chemistry on screen. I think they're so good. And I could just watch the two of them act with each other all day. Like the scene where Khumalo goes to the house and Jarvis is there and he doesn't expect it. And he kind of has a bit of a panic attack. And then they have this conversation and he's like, I have to tell you, it was my son that killed your son. And Jarvis has this intense reaction to it. And just Richard Harris in this is so good, so subtle. Like the scene where they come to tell him his son is dead and the way that he just physically just collapses, but picks himself back up again. It's the physicality of the two of them, both together and separately, is kind of amazing in this.
They're a couple of goddamn movie stars is what they are.
For sure. But really inhabiting these, not looking.
That's not me being dismissive.
No,
that's
no, but
they're masters of their craft.
They don't look like movie stars. They look like they're inhabiting these roles.
Yeah.
Just really, really settling into these roles. They just have it down. And obviously James Earl Jones has that voice and he's so perfect for the voiceover, and it's so good. It's so good. He sounds so good.
I am really curious to know, what are your thoughts on, because what they end up doing is they give some of the narration to James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
Which of course they would.
Of course they do.
Yeah, it's almost unfair that you have James Earl Jones in your movie and you've got him doing narration.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about giving him some of the narration.
Do you know what I think? Honestly, to me, I don't mind it, because I think if you said we're giving Khumalo the narration, you'd be like, yeah, I don't know, because Khumalo's maybe not looking down in an omnipresent way, in the way that the narrator does. But it's James Earl Jones. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's James Earl Jones. It's not Khumalo. It's James Earl Jones.
I'm not going to argue that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it, but it works because it's James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
Of course, I would probably do the same thing.
Yeah, of course you would. Anyone would.
Can I mention, you mentioned Richard Harris doing his little, the way he collapses.
Yeah.
Can I tell you my favorite James Earl Jones moment in the movie?
Sure.
Because it blows me away, because he is, again, a master of his craft. We got to see him on stage one time too.
Yeah, I've seen him on stage a couple times.
Yeah, it was so nice. The face he makes when he finds out that he's been robbed at the bus stop is amazing, because he smiles.
Yeah.
And that would never have been my choice.
Yeah.
That never would have been my instinct.
But it's a very tight-lipped smile.
Yeah, it's like a pained smile.
Yeah. Yeah. And you stopped the movie at that point and you were like, how do you know to make that face? And I was like, I don't know, because I'm not a master of acting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's my favorite. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. He's amazing.
So good. And then I think all of the South African actors are so good. It really lends a lot of authenticity. One thing about the 1951 film that I think you will agree with me, the accents are a little all over the place.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying that is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm saying it is a fact. The accents are all over the place.
You mean how Khumalo's brother sounds like he's from Jamaica?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no. That's Lost in the Stars.
Oh, no, Lost in the Stars, the accents are insane. Insane.
What are you talking about, man?
I'm not saying in 1951 they're insane. I'm saying in 1951 they're a bit all over the place.
I found an opportunity to just get in a little jab at Lost in the Stars.
So being a movie about South Africa, filmed in South Africa, presumably with the full permission of the South African government.
You have to admit the 95 version is nowhere near as rock and roll as 1951 is.
That's fucking baller.
Yeah.
Like I don't like obviously yes. But the oh my god, it is so beautiful.
But anyway, you were talking about the accents. You were saying in 51
yes.
they're a little all over the place.
There's a lot of South African actors in this movie, a lot of actors that haven't done a lot of other things. It feels very real. It feels very authentic. They feel like real people. Misimangu is an actor that I think is great. What is his name?
Vusi Kunene.
Yeah. Who hasn't been in a ton?
No.
And I think he's amazing in this. Like, I think it is not easy probably to be on screen with James Earl Jones. And there are people that are not necessarily masters of their craft. Like they're probably actors, but not as of that caliber. And I think everyone who's in a scene with James Earl Jones and Richard Harris really holds their own in this movie, which is really saying a lot for the acting and the casting and the directing. I also think it is an absolutely gorgeous movie. Not only like the sweeping, like I was going to say drone shots, but I assume they're helicopter shots of sweeping shots of the hills and the mountains and the valleys and all of that. But like all of the shots of the streets of South Africa and the dust and like when they're walking and the slums and the buildings and your skin crawls because they're wearing these like wool long sleeve black garments and it looks so hot. Like you really feel it. It's very visceral and beautiful the way that it's shot. You're seeing all these different things. And I will finally say the music is amazing. The soundtrack, you may have something to say about the score. I'm talking about the sung music.
Okay, heck yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah,
I'm on board.
I'm not talking about...
no one could see my face, but I had
You had a moment.
I had my moment where I was like, I actually disagree.
I'm not talking about the movie score. Yep. I'm talking about the Ladysmith Black Mambazo, the Miriam Makeba, all of the very South African sounds of the movie, all of that music. I think sounds so... I love that music.
Yeah.
I think it sounds so good.
Sure.
So here are the things I think you're going to talk about. I think you're going to talk about the score because it's very 90s.
I am going to talk about that extensively.
Yeah. I think you're going to talk about the cinematography in some ways because there were some things that you did not like where they did like a fake slow-mo type of thing.
The editing.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. But you're right.
I don't know what that is.
That would be the editing.
The editing.
Yeah.
And I also think you're probably going to talk about the glossiness of the production in general, especially because of the way that you responded to the underground feel of the 1951 version. I think you're going to have something to say about how neat and tidy the whole thing kind of feels as a production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did I guess right?
You batting 1,000, sweetie.
Yeah.
Like 3 for 3 on that one. I literally don't think there is a single thing. Yeah. That's there's one. You missed one, but I'll get to that in a minute.
Wait, but first, before you go ahead.
Yeah.
The things that I just said I loved.
Yeah.
What is your response to those things?
Okay, so the cast.
The cast and the acting.
Great. I disagree a little bit on Misimangu, but that's like I disagree because I think Sidney Poitier is Sidney Poitier.
And it's funny because like this is my Misimangu. I know it's Sidney Poitier, but like this is Misimangu for me.
But the one thing about it that is another reason that I like the 51 version better is I can watch the story and feel like I'm watching Kumalo and Jarvis having a conversation. In this, I feel like I'm watching James Earl Jones and Richard Harris having... That's interesting because I don't feel that way at all. I know. Yeah. And I knew we would disagree on that. Yeah.
I don't feel that way at all.
It's hard for me to watch James Earl Jones and kind of lose myself in the story, even though he's so good.
That's interesting because I feel like the performances are very immersive.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Like this is totally subjective.
That's just like my opinion, man.
Yeah. But like he's really good, so it doesn't bother me. That's not a problem I have with it.
Yeah.
I do like Canada Lee more though.
That's fine.
It's a question of degrees.
I understand. It's just a style.
Yeah.
It's just a style choice.
It is a beautiful movie to look at. It's shot incredibly well. The production design is amazing. One thing you didn't mention that I think you'll agree with, I feel like this movie really has its heart in the right place.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think it is coming from the right perspective.
Yeah, well, when did apartheid end in South Africa? 93?
I think, yeah.
And they made this in 95?
Yeah.
Like, this is very, very earnest and optimistic.
Right.
As far as, like, this is a new South Africa, and we're doing this.
And so coming out of the, like, nihilism of the Lost in the Stars thing that we saw, like, that was really nice to see.
Yeah.
So those are all the things I really liked about it.
I was correct.
Yep.
Apartheid was dismantled 93, 94. Nelson Mandela was elected in May 1994. And this movie was made in 95.
Yep.
So very optimistic time.
Yeah. So yes, I agree with all the stuff you said. You clocked all of my problems.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hate the music so much.
Not the songs.
The score. So the score was written by John Barry, who's a very accomplished composer, screen composer. If anyone has listened to this show before, you've probably heard me talk about the kind of music I don't like in movies. I don't like when the score is telling me to feel a certain way, when everything else could do the job. There are so many things in the movie that are nuanced and interesting. For example, there's a scene that is not in the book, and it's a great scene. And for me, it could be a great scene, but I don't like it, where Jarvis goes to visit the boys' club that his son helped found. And he walks in, and there's all these kids there, and they're like boxing and doing all kinds of stuff, and they all go completely silent when he walks in. And he walks straight in, and he walks up to a wall that's covered in photos, and then like the guy who runs the place comes over and talks to him about his son.
Yeah.
It has everything it needs, I think, to be an amazing scene, because it's got beautiful production design, a lot of great actors. It's shot really well. It's shot really simply. But the entire time there is this music telling you what is happening here is important and beautiful. And I hate that.
I know.
I hate it so much.
I know you're very sensitive to it.
I am very sensitive to it.
You are very sensitive to it.
Because it's an easy thing. The thing that makes me so mad is that it's so easy not to do.
Yeah.
It's so easy not to make the mistake. And it's a style thing. Like, this is very, like, 90s prestige movie.
Yeah, it's 90s. It's very 90s, yeah.
But this kind of thing has happened forever and will continue to happen, and I really hate it. So, like, that scene, it has everything it needs to demonstrate a tremendous amount of nuance, because you can identify with any character in the scene. Like, I felt like I could identify with Jarvis, with the kids who were there, with the guy who runs the place. Everyone's feeling things that are complicated. It's complex in a great way. But the music is one thing.
Yeah.
The music is, this is important. And I don't need that. But then we get to the other thing that I didn't like about this movie, which is the editing.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a mess, editing-wise. For two reasons. One, you brought up the fake slow motion, and that drives me crazy too. Yeah. When, like, you want people to pay attention to something, but you didn't shoot enough of it on the day. And I don't necessarily blame the editor as much as I would blame the director, because there's so much of it. But there is a lot of fake slow motion where you take the kind of thing and you, it's hard to describe the look of it, but I think people will know it when they see it. But you take every frame basically and you like double or triple it, and it slows everything down. But it's not shot for slow motion, so it looks really choppy and smeary. And there's many times in the course of the movie where we have that slow motion and then it goes to regular motion, because that's what they had. All they had was the film that they shot. And they were like, well, we want slow motion. It's like, what you should do is you should work around it. What you should do is you should figure out a different solution to it. Don't just do the fake slow motion, because there are some shots in the movie that are real slow motion that are really beautiful to look at and are nicely done, but then there's all the fake stuff. But the editing is even more than that, because there's so many moments where they don't let any moments breathe. So like, for example, when Kumalo is sitting around the table with the other priests and they're talking about like, oh, they're from the guy who was shot and the father, they're from your town. Kumala says, I remember the father and I remember a small bright boy. And in the book, it's that moment that we talked about before where Paton is like, and then they're all quiet because what is it again?
It's like who is not quiet, who is not silent when someone is dead who was a small bright boy.
And you can't necessarily do the exact same thing. You can't necessarily have someone say that, but you can certainly the thing that's more important in that moment than Kumalo saying, I remember a small bright boy, is the moment of silence afterwards. That's the thing Paton is drawing attention to.
Yeah.
And in this, he says it and they cut immediately.
Yeah.
And it kills me because that's the line itself doesn't mean anything if you don't have the moment of silence afterwards.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I think it's funny that the two things so far that you've discussed that you're very passionate about that you didn't like are like the two things that I feel like I'm on record for most movies as not noticing or giving a shit about.
That's fair.
Do you know what I mean? Like if I notice the score being bad in a movie, it is really bad. Like if I notice the editing being bad, it's really bad. And we have had that experience where I'm like, is the editing bad in this? And you're like, yes, it's terrible. But I usually don't notice or care.
That's fine.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And you have the right to be passionate about these things. I just think it's funny that I'm like, no, this is a perfect movie. And you're like, well, hold on a second.
It's kind of a mess. It's a messy movie. That's my thing. It's like it has amazing stuff in it, but it's messy. There's the moment. I'm actually glad I'm remembering to bring this up because it has to do with the 1951 version. There's the moment in the story where Kumalo has just talked to Absalom, and Absalom has told him, "Yeah, I was there, and also so was my cousin." His brother John's son, and this other guy. They were there. They didn't shoot him. I did, but they were there.
Yeah.
And Kumalo comes out and he's talking to his brother, and he's like, yeah, they were there. And his brother says, well, wait a second. There's no proof that my son was even there. Your son is the one that killed him.
Yeah.
And Kumalo has that moment where he's like, what?
He says they were there.
But he says they were there. What are you like? He can't understand how someone could be this immoral.
Yeah. And John says, who will believe your son?
Right.
In the book, what happens is the white director of that reformatory is sitting there in his car, like waiting for Kumalo to be ready to come with him to give him a ride. And he hears their whole conversation. He turns to John Kumalo and he says, you're a clever man, but thank God you're not my brother.
Yeah.
And then he's like, do you want to ride? And Kumalo's like, no, I'll walk. It's fine. Like I can't. After that, I can't ride with you.
Mm-hmm. And in the 1951 version, they keep that.
Yeah, it's a really good line.
And it's like he's angry.
Yeah,
like he's not. It's not like a passive aggressive kind of thing. It's aggressive.
Yeah,
he's like, "Fuck you, sir. That's evil." And in the 1995 version, John says, "But who will believe your son?" And they cut.
Yeah.
We don't have any of those moments afterwards. We don't have a section. We barely even have a second to see what Kumalo's reaction is to John saying this. Anyway, I know this stuff is nitpicky. Those were the two biggest examples for me. I felt like it was happening the entire time, but like I don't want in any way. Thank you for letting me air this stuff.
You're welcome.
Because it was driving me crazy.
Sure.
I really appreciate it. But like I'm glad we spent more time talking about the things that make this movie really good.
Yeah.
But then we did the bad stuff. But I really appreciate you giving me a minute to talk about the things that drove me crazy.
Sure. I'm glad you got that out of your system.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right.
I just have one last thing, and it is a dig, and I'm very sorry. It's not about the score, but it is about the music. Who are some of the artists that you say they include in the movie?
Ladysmith Black Mambazo.
Yeah.
Miriam Makeba.
Yeah. And Enya?
Yeah.
Of course.
The credits song is ridiculous. I'll give you that.
The credits song, Exile, performed by Enya.
The credits song is absolutely ridiculous. totally out of left field. Well, we were watching it and I was like, because I usually don't watch the credits of any movie.
Yeah.
But we were talking. So like the credits were just playing. And I was like, is this? Because it sounds like the Lord of the Rings. I was like, is this Enya?
And my reaction was
no.
But my reaction was no, it couldn't possibly be Enya because that would be crazy.
Yeah, and it was.
And it was Enya.
Yeah, because she's contractually obligated to sing the credit song of every single movie from 1995.
It is insane.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There is no argument. There is no possible justification. It is ridiculous that it's Enya. But I never noticed that before now because I never watched the credits of any movie.
Sure. But it just, all it does is add to my whole thing about like, this movie is really good. But it's not very rock and roll, is it?
No.
No.
Not everything can be rock and roll.
Alan Paton was pretty rock and roll.
He was, but
That book's pretty rock and roll.
not everything can be rock and roll.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, let's do some quadrants really quickly.
Yeah.
So let's go back to 1951, Cry the Beloved Country. Do you think they cared about the source material?
Do I think Alan Paton cared about his own book?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, he did.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Was it successful?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Going back, we can't really talk about the show Lost in the Stars.
Yeah.
But like...
Well, we can talk about Lost in the Stars, the musical, having sort of two source materials, one be the movie that we watched, one being the original musical, and one being the book Cry the Beloved Country.
Right.
So we could even talk about both of those things.
Yeah. Does it seem like the people who made the show cared about the source material?
No.
Does it seem like it was successful?
No.
Okay. The movie?
Yeah.
Does it seem that they cared about
anything? No, absolutely not.
It seemes like Brock Peters cared.
Yeah. But he was not he is not given production credit on this movie.
And was it successful?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
one of the worst things we've watched for this show. Like genuinely, like top 5.
Well, it's like worse in that way that like it's not just bad, it's also offensive because it's a bad version of a really good thing that has like social impact.
I'm sorry. It's a bad version of a bad version of a really good thing.
Right. Yeah. It's the multiplicity thing. It's a photocopy of a photocopy.
It's the Inception. Shitty Inception.
Yep. Okay, 1995. Do you think they cared about the source material?
Absolutely.
And is it successful?
Yes, it is.
I completely agree.
Thank you.
Sweetie, it's been so nice having you on the show. Thank you for coming back. And I can't wait until you are back again. Well, this has been Adapt or Perish. If you'd like to find us online, head to adaptorperishcast.com. There you'll find our email address, links to the show on Mastodon and Blue Sky, and more. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. You can join our Patreon page for free to get general announcements about the show and news about current and upcoming episodes. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can join at a paid level to get access to our bonus show, Adapt or Perish Plus, and our patron-only Slack community. You can also support the show by telling a friend about us, leaving a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice, and visiting our bookshop.org storefront at bookshop.org/shop/adaptcast, where you can purchase all of the books we've covered on the show. Part of every purchase will support us and a local bookstore of your choice.
Bye, everybody.
Were you trying to think of like a funny line to do?
Well,
and then you realized that like maybe this isn't the material.
It might not be the moment. Yeah. Well, originally I was thinking I would like actually read a little passage from the book, but we actually did that in the course of the episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, bye, everybody.